But it's called the God particle. It's the particle that's responsible for allowing mass to occur. And I heard a physicist on TV saying, well, this really helps us believe that there doesn't have to be a God, because we have found what he called the God particle. I'm not that smart, but I want to go, well, who created the God particle? So we come this morning, and we come as people who believe in faith that there is a God. This God cannot be proven scientifically. We will leave science matters to science. But we come in faith this morning. So I invite you to realize that and to posit your prayers in that place within your life where you find faith. I know all things news because I sit most of the day with an iPad in my lap. And I play Word, and I go to the CNN website over and over again to see if anything's changed in the world. It doesn't change all that fast, but as we think about this church and the exciting time, but also the vulnerable time of moving to a new home, you might be interested to know, and perhaps you already do, that we are joined in this process by another congregation in the United States. It was announced this week that the congregation of the Crystal Cathedral will be moving to a much smaller facility. They filed for Chapter 11 a couple of years back, and they're moving to a smaller Catholic church facility. Their facility was purchased by the Catholic Diocese of Orange County. It will become the central cathedral for the Catholic Diocese. We think of leaving this facility, what would it be like to leave the Crystal Cathedral? We think of moving an organ. They don't get to take their organ. It's the world's largest pipe organ. So I thought it'd be interesting to just take a moment to note that we're not the only ones on the move. They're on the move. It is a vulnerable time, and that's perhaps where the text can speak to us today. The context for Paul is Corinth. It was a city, a very important city on the Greek Isles. It was a place where Paul had spent many months nurturing a small congregation of Christians. There came a moment when the church in Jerusalem, the mother church, decided that they should send some new apostles to be there to shepherd the congregation. They sent what some have called our super apostles. These were individuals who came with great fluency and eloquence. They looked good. When I think of what they must have been like, I remember growing up in the Southern Baptist tradition, and we would have yearly revivals, and they would have evangelists come to town. One in particular came to our congregation at First Baptist Enid, pastored by Dr. M.F. Uten. He had been there 20 plus years, a wise old soul. Steve loved him because he saw cigar ash on his suit one time, and he realized the pastor smoked cigars. and that was a rarity back there in Oklahoma. Eddie Martin was his name, the evangelist. He was known because he had all these suits that were different colors: pink suits, blue suits, yellow suits. He was quite the dazzler. Even as a teenager, as this man came to town as the high-powered evangelist, I was a bit suspicious because, he traveled with his mother. I thought that was odd, even as a teenager, that he would travel with his mother. I still remember where I was sitting in the sanctuary the night of the revival when he concluded his sermon by saying, "I hope you will come back tomorrow night, because tomorrow night I will tell you where John F. Kennedy," this is post-assassination, Martin Luther King, post-assassination, and Robert Kennedy are this very night. Well, we anticipated hearing from him, but old Dr. M.F. Uten got to him and said, we won't have any of that business in our congregation. He said, you're not going to play that kind of game. We don't do that here. So I never did find out where they were, but it was like he had a secret knowledge that none of us had. You've known Christians like that. You know, they've got some kind of knowledge that you don't have. They've got an insight that you don't have. Eddie Martin would have fit in with his dear mother in Corinth as one of the super apostles. These people were primed to be dazzled. They were waiting to be impressed. They were rooted as Christians, even before they were Christians, in a world called the Gnostic world. From the Greek word gnosis, it means knowledge. And there were people in the Gnostic religions who had secret knowledge. Why? They'd even been to the third paradise, the third heaven. They have the knowledge that others don't have. Those Corinthian Christians liked to be dazzled by the super apostles. They also lived in a place that exhibited cultural and social and political strength. If you had marched into Corinth on a trip, you would have been impressed with the Temple of Apollo, a magnificent marble temple there. Corinth had two harbors, not just one. So there was much strength in commerce. It was a cosmopolitan area. These Corinthians liked to be impressed. Every 2 years, they had the Isthmian Games, Olympic Games, where the best and the strongest came to impress with physical feat. So they were ready for the super apostles. In fact, it seems that Paul observed they favored the super apostles, these who had super religious knowledge, these who could speak in unknown tongues, these who could dazzle with eloquence. That's the context for Paul writing today to the church at Corinth. I too have been to the third heaven. I've seen God. Scholars don't know what he means by that. It's interesting that he speaks in the third person. I know a man. That was a common rabbinical rhetorical device. I don't think my son Taylor knows that, but Taylor likes to speak of himself in the third person. It's rather odd. Taylor's hungry. I find that really strange. Taylor needs money. Scholars believe that Paul's talking about himself. It's just a way of distancing himself. He says, I could boast in all of that. I've been to the third heaven, but I cannot boast in that because I know that strength is found in weakness. In fact, he says, if I choose to boast, God has done something to me that keeps me from being able to boast. He says he's given me what in the Greek is the word a splinter. He's given me a splinter. It feels like a splinter that's stuck in me and I can't get out. I've asked 3 times to have this splinter removed. Again, scholars and church fathers and mothers from the earliest of days have speculated as to what was it that served as this kind of humbling device in his life. Was it a physical ailment? Was it psoriasis, a skin ailment? Was it leprosy? Was it ophthalmological? Was it he had cataracts and couldn't see? Did he have a stutter? Was it emotional? Was it a temptation that rose up over and over again for him? But he says, I've asked 3 times and I still have it, so I can't boast. But God says, my grace is sufficient for thee. My grace is sufficient for thee. It's probably one of the most quoted verses in the Bible. And then he concludes by saying again, strength is found in weakness. It's not found in the ability to be strong. It's not physically, emotionally, or mentally. It's not found in the ability to dazzle with words and impress with eloquence. Strength is found in weakness. I'm not sure I know what that means. I do know it's a paradox, and that's not two MDs. That's a paradox. It's been said that you can't understand the New Testament without paradox, without understanding paradox. How can it be true that when you're strong, the strength is rooted in weakness?